April 2011. A man in a gray hoodie sits down at a Tropicana blackjack table. Pit bosses watch from above, and they are nervous. Over the next 12 hours, Don Johnson will take this casino for $5.8 million, without counting a single card, without breaking a single rule. But the real threat to these casinos did not begin when the cards were dealt. It began months earlier in a negotiation room where Johnson convinced 3 desperate casinos to rewrite their own rules. $15 million across 3 properties, every dollar legal. And it all started with a city in free fall. Atlantic City's casinos once ran on certainty. The house always won, but by 2010, that certainty was gone. The numbers told the story. In 2008, Atlantic City casinos brought in $5.2 billion. 2 years later, the figure had collapsed to $3.3 billion. That is nearly $2 billion vanished. Over a third of the city's lifeblood wiped out in just 24 months. The cause was not just the Great Recession. Pennsylvania, once a dry patch for casino operators, flipped the script. In 2004, lawmakers approved slot machines. By 2010, table games were legal. New casinos opened across the border, drawing crowds that once filled Atlantic City's boardwalks. High rollers from Philadelphia and beyond no longer needed to make the drive to New Jersey. They could lose or win right at home. Inside Atlantic City's counting rooms, panic set in. Revenues fell month after month. Corporate boards demanded answers. Managers watched as the competition siphoned off their best customers. The city's monopoly was broken. For the first time, the casinos were not just losing money, they were losing power. Desperation breeds risk. Atlantic City's operators started making offers they never would have considered in better days. To lure back the whales, they rolled out the red carpet, and then some. Loss rebates, once a rare perk, became standard. 10% back on net losses, then 15%. By late 2010, 20% rebates appeared on the table for anyone willing to bet big enough. The only requirement was simple: lose more than $500,000 in a session, and the casino would hand you $100,000 right back. It was a gamble on keeping the action flowing, a calculated risk to stop the bleeding. But the math did not stop with rebates. Executives tweaked blackjack rules, shaving away the house edge to keep high rollers in the game. Dealer stands on soft 17, resplitting aces, 6-deck shoes. Each change chipped away at the casino's advantage. The old rules were rewritten in real time, one contract at a time, for players who knew how to ask. The result was a city owned by the house, suddenly making deals it barely understood. In the boardrooms, confidence stayed high. The house always wins, they told themselves. But the numbers on the ledgers said otherwise. The stage was set for someone to walk through the front door and turn that desperation into opportunity. Not with a scam, not with a hidden camera or a marked deck. With nothing but a pen, a contract, and a mind built for numbers. Don Johnson never looked like a threat. He didn't bluff, he didn't chase losses, he didn't even raise his voice. But his resume read like a blueprint for breaking the system. Born in 1962, Johnson started out managing the Philadelphia Park racetrack, later known as Park's Casino. He learned gambling from the inside out, running the numbers on horses, odds, and payouts before most casino executives had even dealt a hand. After the track, Johnson moved into the world of regulation. Oregon, Idaho, Texas, Wyoming, 4 states, 4 commissions. He sat in back rooms with state officials, dissecting the fine print of gaming law, learning how the house wrote its rules and where those rules could be bent. His job was to spot loopholes, not exploit them. But he never forgot how the rulebook was written. By the mid-2000s, Johnson was Chief Executive Officer of Heritage Development, a company that built computer models for wagering and advised racetracks on how to manage risk. He wasn't just a gambler, he was an architect of the games themselves. He knew every edge, every variable, every statistical quirk that might tip the odds, even by a fraction of a percent. His reputation inside the industry was cold, clinical, and relentless. If there was a way to make the numbers work, Johnson would find it. This was the man who walked into Atlantic City's boardrooms while the city was bleeding. He didn't beg for comps or ask for a line of credit. He demanded contracts, written, signed, and notarized. He asked for rule changes that sounded harmless to casino managers desperate for action. Let the dealer stand on soft 17, allow resplitting of aces, cap the shoe at 6 decks. Then he insisted on a 20% rebate on net losses over $500,000 per session. The casinos, blinded by their own confidence, agreed. They believed the house always wins. Johnson knew better. He didn't need to count cards. He didn't need a team. He needed a pen, a calculator, and a willingness to walk away if the math didn't add up. Every concession was legal. Every clause was signed. Before he ever touched a chip, Johnson had already flipped the odds. The real heist happened at the negotiating table, not the Blackjack felt. By the time the ink dried, the casinos had handed him the only weapon he needed, a game where the house edge was gone, and the math was finally on his side. Contracts landed on the table, thick with legalese, but Don Johnson zeroed in on the numbers. He didn't blink. He didn't bluff. He demanded the unthinkable, and Atlantic City's executives, bleeding cash and desperate for a win, signed anyway. The deal sheet spelled out every concession in black and white. Dealer stands on soft 17. No more cheap hits for the house. Re-splitting aces, once, twice, as many times as the cards allowed. A 6-deck shoe, shuffled but never cut, removing the last edge from the casino's arsenal. And the big one, a $100,000 maximum bet per hand, written in ink. Johnson could put more money on the felt in a single minute than most gamblers would see in a lifetime. But the real weapon was the rebate clause. If Johnson lost $500,000 in a session, the casino owed him 20% back, $100,000, paid out immediately, no questions asked. This wasn't a comp or a favor or a handshake deal. It was a signed contract, notarized, with the casino's logo stamped on every page. The terms were clear, the triggers automatic. No hidden language, no loopholes for the house to crawl through. Johnson's team ran the numbers, checked the math, and found the edge had flipped. Every clause was legal. Every rule was agreed to by the house. The executives believed they still held the power. Johnson knew otherwise. The ink on the deal sheet was barely dry. The odds, for the first time, were his. Numbers don't lie. Johnson's team ran the calculations before he ever touched a chip. The standard Atlantic City blackjack game gave the house a 0.5% edge. With the new rules, dealer stands on soft 17, re-splitting aces, 6 decks, and that 20% rebate, the edge dropped to 0.25%. Not for the house, for the player. A mathematician on Johnson's payroll put it in plain language. Every hand dealt under those rules, every $100,000 bet was worth $260 in expected profit. No card counting, no secret signals. Just contracts, probability, and a willingness to bet big. The casino's old advantage, gone, replaced by a razor-thin player edge that held up under 100 million simulated deals. Monte Carlo simulations confirmed it. Run the numbers, hand after hand, day after day. The model predicted an average daily profit of $125,000. The risk, manageable. The edge, relentless. Johnson's approach wasn't a gamble. It was a calculated assault, engineered down to the decimal. The math didn't care about casino bravado or high-roller theatrics. It only cared about the rules on the page and the money on the table. Inside the industry, the numbers spread like wildfire. A 0.25% edge, plus $260 per hand. The kind of advantage casinos spent decades trying to erase. Johnson didn't need to cheat. He had already won before the first card left the shoe. Johnson sat down at Caesars with the ink barely dry on his contract. No entourage, no swagger. Just a man in a hoodie, betting $100,000 a hand while the pit bosses watched from behind mirrored glass. The cards fell, the chips moved, and the math did its work. In a matter of days, Johnson pulled $4 million off the tables. No drama, no celebration. He counted his chips, signed the paperwork, and left as quietly as he had arrived. On the floor, the mood turned sour. Dealers whispered. Managers huddled near the cage, scanning the session logs. One pit boss, asked about Johnson's play, said he did not even seem excited. It was like he was clocking in for a shift. The casino's risk team ran the numbers again. The rules were clear. The rebate was triggered. Every clause had been followed to the letter. There was no angle to contest, no grounds to refuse payment. Caesars paid out the full $4 million. The loss was not a fluke. It was a direct result of the deal they had signed. Johnson never raised his voice, never changed his expression. He made the game look routine. Word spread to the other casinos. The house edge had vanished, and the player was walking away with their money. Caesars executives scrambled to figure out what had just happened. But Johnson was already looking for his next table. Borgata's high-limit room was designed for spectacle, velvet ropes, mirrored walls, a sense of control. But the night Don Johnson played, control was an illusion. He arrived with the same contract, 6 decks, dealer stands on soft 17, unlimited ace splits, and that all-important 20% rebate on net losses over $500,000. The pit bosses nodded, confident. The house had weathered swings before. They had no idea they were about to be outmatched by pure arithmetic. Johnson's bets landed hard, $100,000 a hand, flat, never wavering. The room grew tense as chips stacked up in front of him. He didn't celebrate. He didn't flinch. Session logs show the numbers climbing, $1 million ahead, then $2 million, then $4 million. By the time the shoe ran out, Borgata's cage was lighter by $5 million. Every hand, every clause, every dollar, locked in by the rules the casino had signed. Behind the scenes, panic spread. A management memo circulated that night ordered the risk team to review every frame of surveillance, every contract page. They found nothing to contest. The rebate clause triggered as written. Johnson's play was clean. The only thing broken was the casino's belief that the house always wins. Emergency meetings ran until dawn. The next morning, Borgata's executives quietly pulled the plug on all fresh rebate offers, but the damage was done. Johnson had exposed the system's weak spot, and the losses were real. Tropicana watched closely, wondering if they would be next. Inside the Tropicana, the final act unfolded with surgical precision. Johnson took his seat at the high-limit table just after dusk. 12 hours later, the casino's ledger was $5.8 million lighter. The session did not play out like a movie. No wild celebrations, no crowd of hangers-on. Just a man in a hoodie, stacking chips, eyes fixed on the cards. The pit bosses circled. Dealers exchanged glances. Every hand was a fresh test of the deal the casino had signed. The tension snapped at 4 a.m. Johnson split 2 eights, $100,000 on each. Another 8 landed. He split again. Then came the double downs. By the time the chips were pushed forward, $800,000 was riding on one hand. The dealer drew, then busted. Johnson's stack doubled in an instant. A floor manager, still in disbelief, told a reporter later that he had never seen anyone so calm with that much money on the line, and that he was ice. The math was relentless. The rules were ironclad. Every clause was enforced. Johnson did not count cards. He did not need to. The 20% rebate hovered in the background, a silent insurance policy. If the cards fell badly, the casino owed him $100,000 for every $500,000 lost. But on this night, the cards broke his way. By sunrise, Tropicana's executives were staring at a $5.8 million loss and a single hand that would echo through the industry. The House had rewritten the rules. Johnson just read them better. $15,100,000. That's what Atlantic City's finest paid out to a single man in under 6 months. 3 casinos, Caesars, Borgata, and Tropicana, each signed the checks, and each one watched the money walk out the door. The numbers landed in quarterly reports like a slap. $4 million gone from Caesars, $5 million from Borgata, $5.8 million from Tropicana. No fraud, no lawsuit, no loophole big enough to crawl through. Every dollar was paid under contract, every clause approved by legal teams and compliance officers. The fallout was immediate. Tropicana's CEO, Dave Fogel, was dismissed before summer. The press release called it a routine change, but insiders pointed straight at the balance sheet. Revenue had cratered by $12 million in a single month, and the board wanted blood. Across town, rebate deals vanished overnight. Operators tore up high roller contracts, canceled every cashback offer above $100,000, and locked out anyone who asked for more. Regulators moved fast. The Division of Gaming Enforcement issued a confidential memo that said no laws had been broken, but it was a warning shot. All future rebate agreements would require pre-approval, full transparency, and hard caps. Johnson's play was legal. The damage was real. The system had been beaten by its own rules. Johnson's name vanished from every casino guest list in Atlantic City. The exclusion was swift and absolute. A lifetime ban delivered not by a court or a regulator, but by the very institutions that had written his contracts. Caesars, Borgata, and Tropicana each issued their own official letter, barring him from the property. No lawsuit, no appeal, just a line drawn in the sand. Behind closed doors, executives called it a necessary step. Publicly, they insisted the rules had been followed, that Johnson's play was technically fair. But the language of the ban told a different story, one of wounded pride and quiet retaliation. The New Jersey Division of Gaming Enforcement declined to intervene. No law had been broken. The contracts were clear. Yet Johnson's face landed on the industry's internal watch list, a silent signal to every operator: do not let this man play. The question lingers. If every hand was dealt above board, if every dollar was won under the rules the House approved, who crossed the line? Was it the gambler who read the fine print, or the casinos who gambled with their own rules? Johnson walked away with $15 million and a permanent ban. The House shut the door, but the verdict on who truly lost remains unsettled. This was not luck. It was leverage, cold, precise, and entirely legal. Johnson's 20% rebate slashed the House edge to zero. No card counting, no cheating, just numbers, contracts, and nerve. Today, casinos still chase whales, rewriting rules to stay afloat. But every system has a flaw, and sometimes the smartest player is the one who knows where to look. What would you have done in his seat?